welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's Wednesday, March 27th. You're watching News 2 on VIA Channel 4 and 504. I'm April Knight. Topping our stories tonight, Carnival season on St. Thomas is coming up. And with all the preparation that's going on, we're still in the dark about the status of one of Carnival's traditions, live horse racing. Yesterday's Senate hearing did not clear that up either. Well, today, News 2 caught up with a general manager at VIGL Racing Operations, Jason Williams, to try and get an answer. News 2's James Gardner has more.
At Tuesday's Senate hearing, the topic of the racetrack came up, and VIGL Racing Operations Executive told lawmakers that there is no clear timeline on when live racing can resume in the territory. News 2 caught up with Jason Williams, General Manager at VIGL Racing Operations, to get a first-hand look at the racetrack and what it will take to put on races.
The condition of the track right now, as you can see, there would be a lot of work to get done in order to, in fact, have a carnival race. As you can see, what the grounds look like currently. One of the things that I really need to point out, at this stage, there's not even a finish line at this stage on the track. There's no camera system and what have you in place for determining the finishing of a race in the event of close races. The grounds, there's no shaded area. Obviously, you can see that as we're going through here, and would need quite a bit of work in order to make that happen. And in terms of shaded and seated areas, I'm not sure exactly what will take place and what we can do at this point.
VIGL holds the franchise agreement for both the Clinton Phipps Racetrack on St. Thomas and the Randall Doc James Racetrack on St. Croix, each of which are in varying stages of readiness for live racing. Without an implemented franchise agreement, the live racing agreement with the Horse Racing Association cannot take effect.
Have a race at this point, since the franchise agreement is not in effect. And then again, beyond that, you're talking about all the rules and the anti-doping policies and all of that would be would need to be in place in order to get a race done. So there's a whole lot of work that would need to happen in order for a carnival race to take place. Of course, our first major permit we obtained recently, which was the coastal zone permit, that we had applied for, and after again a series of meetings and site visits and what have you, the permit was actually approved back in November. Unfortunately, we didn't get the signed permit until about 10 days ago, and why that took place, I can't really speak to that, but we did not actually get the permit until then. So that will now enable us to begin starting with the permanent construction of the facility. And that's important. I'm glad you asked that question. That's important too, because any permanent work, any work we do towards the permanent construction would have to certainly be suspended in order to have a race. And that ultimately will push the build out of the track back more and more as we continue to accommodate any interim racing or what have you.
There is a meeting taking place this afternoon in St. Croix, and Mr. Williams believes he will walk out with a better understanding for the path forward.
A lot will be discussed then, and I think there will be a clear path. Everyone will be on the same page in terms of what's going to take place, and this whole idea about racing and interim racing and temporary racing and all of that. I imagine all of that will be discussed today, and I think there'll be a clear path once that meeting is over.
For News 2, this is James Gardner.
We'll keep you updated. Well, on Monday, we reported on the opening of the MKS Interim Health Center on St. John. The modular hospital was finally installed and began accepting patients for the first time since the 2017 hurricanes. But the modulars are just that, modular structures standing in as temporary replacements for the actual hospital. Daryl Smalls, Vice President of Facilities Management at Schneider Hospital, gave us a walkthrough of the old Myra Keating building And here is what we know. The building suffered significant water damage, according to Smalls, and it's not conducive for patient care. As you can see, a lot of the ceiling tiles are exposed, which means a lot of wiring and cable is also exposed. There is mold on the ceiling of some rooms because of the lack of ventilation and light after the hurricanes. According to Smalls, Schneider Hospital is working with Adrian Williams-Octolin at the new Office of Disaster Recovery and with Governor Albert Bryan. There are plans to upgrade the facilities to code compliance and to harden the structure to mitigate the damage if another hurricane or disaster hits. They're also trying to create a hardened safe space inside the old building that occupants of the modular hospital can retreat to in the event of a disaster. Small said having a new upgraded hardened Myrick heating facility does not necessarily mean demolishing the old one. Here's more.
FEMA always says it ultimately is our decision that if you do meet that, is it prudent to demolish a structure? Some of these structures are structurally sound. Yes, they suffered water damages and what have you, but for instance, the Myrick heating, there's no damage to any of the exterior walls or windows or anything like that. The roof suffered damages, but we feel confident that with the proper engineering and the proper reconstruction, we feel that confident that we can salvage this building and create the state-of-the-art facility. Yes, it has endured Hurricane Hugo, Hurricane Marilyn, all the other storms, and most recently Irma and Maria. Structurally, those buildings are still standing. I have electricity in the building right now. The emergency generator is currently working, so we do have, electrical in the building, which we are using to help in terms of additional storage for this facility. As I mentioned before, this is only a 3,000 square foot. That's 28,000 square foot. So a portion of that building right now, we've been working with FEMA to create a hardened space. So in the event of a disaster, or I should say a hurricane, and let's say in this upcoming season, we'll be able to shelter in place within that structure in a comfortable environment with emergency backup power, that God forbid something were to happen to this structure, we could take the critical equipment, a lot of the stuff that we just outfitted this structure with, and put it in a safe location until the storm passes. And yeah, as you indicated, I can't put a definitive timeline on it, but from a standard practice, once we get an architect on board, we can estimate anywhere between 9 to 12 months for the design. And then once you put out an RFP to hire a contractor, depending on the extent of the repairs or reconstruction, we could realistically look at having a complete facility within 18 months thereafter, shorter, or perhaps longer, depending on the extent. But my hope and my wish is within 18 months or less that we can have a brand new state-of-the-art facility on the island of St. John.
Ahead of hurricane season, Governor Bryan is also making the rounds, visiting various facilities that have to do with the Virgin Islands disaster response capabilities. On Tuesday, the governor and newly appointed VITEMA director nominee Daryl Jashin visited a FEMA distribution center in Bayamon, Puerto Rico. The distribution center houses equipment and commodities that can be shipped to the Virgin Islands in the event of a major storm. The Virgin Islands does have commodities and supplies on hand, including food, water, and sheeting, but we don't have our own climate-controlled facility, according to VITEMA's Denise Lewis. So some commodities end up getting stored in Puerto Rico and shipped to the Virgin Islands ahead of a potentially destructive storm. In September 2017, following Hurricane Irma, FEMA sent a majority of its supplies to the USVI, including bottled water, meals, and all of the tarps and cots from its warehouse. According to the VI Government House, and that's according to the VI Government House. All of that information is coming from them, and we'll keep you updated on the territory's disaster prep as we approach hurricane season. On St. Croix, all of the Big Island's power went down around 2:50 this afternoon. According to the Water and Power Authority, a generating unit fell offline at the Estate Richmond Power Plant and tripped all of the feeders. WAPA personnel were still working to get the power back up at around 4 p.m. You can go to viwapa.vi to check which feeder you're on. We'll keep you updated on this, but you can also go to the Water and Power Authority Facebook page for more information. Turning our attention to crime, a St. Croix man was arrested after punching and strangling a woman. On March 24th, around 8 p.m., a woman called 911 and reported that she was punched and strangled by a male acquaintance named Alexander St. Rose. The woman told police that all of this happened at the animal shelter in La Grande Princess and Christian said. When police arrived, St. Rose returned to the scene. The victim had signs of swelling on the face and a small scratch on the neck, according to police. She also told police that St. Rose held her by the neck and shook her, and she couldn't breathe, but she fought back, biting St. Rose until he let her go from the chokehold. Alexander St. Rose, 20 years old, was arrested and charged with assault second-degree domestic violence. No bail was set per the domestic violence statute. He was remanded to Golden Grove pending his advice of rights hearing. On St. John, meanwhile, a teenager reported for assault ran away from police and jumped into a creek, but got caught anyway. On Monday, March 4th, around 2 in the morning, a man on St. John reported that he was assaulted by another male. Police found the victim, who was standing in front of Quiet Mon pub in Prince Street. The man was bleeding from cuts on the face and had swelling on the left side of the head, according to police. The victim told police that he was attacked by Isaias Ashley, who struck him repeatedly on the head with a revolver. He also said that Ashley grabbed his 36-inch Gucci chain and drove away. On Sunday, the 24th, police found Ashley in the area of the customs dock. They said Ashley suddenly ran towards the dock in the National Park area and officers ran after him, and that was when he jumped into the water and refused to get out, according to police, but he was arrested anyway. Divers helped police retrieve the revolver from the water. Isaias Ashley, who is 19 years old, was placed under arrest and charged with robbery in the first degree. His bail was set at $25,000. He is now in the custody of the Bureau of Corrections. Coming up next, a preview of the upcoming Sounds of the Virgin Isles, plus a film focused on domestic violence against men when we come back. Welcome back. The stories of 5 men were screened recently at Caribbean cinemas, and that is to raise awareness on sexual violence against men. The Virgin Islands Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Council, or DVSAC, invited Vanessa McNeil, an award-winning documentary filmmaker and national speaker, to screen the film to community members, as well as to engage them in conversations that could possibly tear down stigmas. Stephanie Brown has more.
Men are fearless. They're basically immune to danger.
The Virgin Islands Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Council presented a documentary by director Vanessa McNeil exploring taboos, stereotypes, and the impact of sexual violence on men.
So The Voiceless is a documentary about 5 men who are survivors of sexual violence. So they talk about masculinity, culture, race, how intersectionality plays a role in why they aren't able to come forward and share their stories.
According to the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 71 men will be raped at some point in their lives. Since women are more highly impacted by sexual assault, male victims may face some additional challenges talking about their experiences because of social attitudes and stereotypes about men and masculinity.
How many men do we know in our community, in our network, in our circle that have survived this but aren't telling us?
It was the most uncomfortable thing I ever felt at 7 years old.
The 5 men shared their stories as survivors of sexual assault by perpetrators that not only included men, but females as well.
Lost her virginity at 15 to 35-year-old woman, right? And it's it's the same dynamic of power and control.
Oh yeah,
It doesn't stop after 6.
RAIN, the largest nonprofit anti-sexual assault organization in the United States, explained that many men who experience an erection or ejaculation during an assault may be confused and wonder why the erection occurred.
So arousal. Arousal comes from our autonomic part of our brain, which is largely subconscious. So like the place in our brain where like that makes our heart beat or us breathe, we don't have like, we're not thinking about that in our brain, but it's still happening. That's the same way with sexual arousal. So we have to teach our kids, like if someone's touching certain parts of your body, maybe it be your chest, maybe it be your genitals or your ears or your neck, even if you don't want that to happen, you still might get erect.
It got to the point where I didn't trust nobody in my home. It got to the point where I was always angry.
Similar to the sentiments of one of the survivors featured in the film, Tariq McMillan, a Virgin Islands counselor, attests that aggressive behavior can be an adverse effect of trauma.
Well, I haven't seen much men say that they feel like they're a victim. We present as angry. I keep saying they, but we present as angry most times because it's a lot easier to present anger in the face of versus victimhood. So if I have the choice between feeling angry versus as a victim, I'm going to go with anger. And however that comes out, that's the way it comes out.
If you've experienced sexual assault and would like to speak with someone, contact the Women's Coalition of St. Croix at 773-9272. For News 2, I'm Stephanie Shalana Brown.
Thank you for that, Stephanie. Now here's a bit of good news for individuals who lost their jobs as a result of the hurricanes. Government House announced that the disaster unemployment assistance has been extended for an additional 26 weeks. So if you were unemployed as a direct result of the 2017 hurricanes and you still don't have a job, you can take advantage of the extended disaster assistance period. And that is if you meet all of the requirements for eligibility. The government has begun sending out registration packages to folks who may qualify for the extended benefits. That started on Monday. If you receive that packet, you have to complete the application and take it to the Unemployment Insurance Office with the supporting documents. The locations of those offices are on your screen. Unemployment insurance representatives will be available Mondays through Fridays from 8 until 4 p.m. For St. John, however, somebody will be there from those offices in Cruz Bay at the St. John Battery on Monday and Wednesday only from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. For more information, you can call 715-5712 or you can go to www.vidol.gov. You have until May 24th to file that application. Transfer Day is coming up meanwhile, and this weekend one lawmaker wants to put focus on Virgin Islands culture, particularly music. In partnership with the Department of Education, Senator Janelle Sarow is putting together the second annual Sounds of the Virgin Isles, an event showcasing young Virgin Islanders performing local music and playing traditional instruments. The event is this Saturday, March 30th at the Fort Christian on St. Thomas. It's a fundraiser to benefit art and music programs in local public schools. But more importantly, Senator Sarow said it's a celebration of sounds born in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Here's more.
So you'll have music from the Bill Armadas, you'll have Quilby. From 6 to 7, we'll have a silent auction. We'll provide hors d'oeuvres. Caribbean style, fish soup, some callaloo, chicken soup, pickup saltfish, and then at 7 p.m. sharp, the conch shell will be blown, and it will signal the beginning of the concert. This year's honoree is Monet Davis, one of our musical pioneers. She's in the National Guard as well, music educator at Utica High School, and we're very, very excited about the event. Our arts programs, they've been severely underfunded, and statistics show that students that participate in arts, in music, they excel academically. And we've missed the mark on that. So I wanted to do a concert that would give back to those programs, and we've opened an account in CFBI, and all proceeds go there. What it does is instill a sense of national pride. Oftentimes you go to concerts and we play music from elsewhere. We have amazing composers in the Virgin Islands that we have not celebrated the way that we should.
Stick around, your News 2 AccuWeather forecast. That's coming up next. Good
afternoon. As we continue through today, well, our trade flow is going to be disrupted. That means not as breezy, and that's due to a front that will continue to press its way further towards the east. We'll also be tracking out a low pressure system off the coast of the Bahamas as well as the eastern U.S. that will continue to merge with this same front, and that in itself will also allow for our trades to continue to be disrupted, but it will try to swing in some moisture closer to the central Caribbean and towards the leewards as well. As we take a closer look, you notice there are clouds present and around. That's going to be our best chance for some scattered activity, some very spotty activity across the Virgin Islands. So if you plan to be out and about for the rest of the evening, patchy clouds with a shower here or there, dropping down to 76. And then as we head into your Thursday, we're in the mid 80s in St. John. So temperatures not changing too much. Partly sunny skies with showers throughout your day. Also going to be looking at that same forecast here in St. Thomas in the mid 80s for your high. And as we head into St. Croix, upper 80s with showers and spots. Not a washout situation, and once again going to be a bit less breezy. In fact, for your marine forecast on the Atlantic side tomorrow, waves 2 to 4 feet, winds out of the southeast 5 to 10 knots. Winds are a bit more aggressive as you head into the Caribbean side for tomorrow. Winds out of the southeast 10 to 15 knots, but waves running 2 to 4 feet at this time. For tomorrow, no cautions or advisories in place. And as we continue into the next several days, closing out this week for Friday, a high of 84, low 75, and showers will remain very spotty. We're going to continue to see that same forecast into your weekend and early week. No big systems coming our way to dump down any heavy bouts of moisture at this point in time. So partial sunshine for tomorrow, Friday, and then really going to notice that shower chance diminishing Saturday. That means great beach weather. As far as our marine forecast goes for tomorrow, going to be on the calm side with winds continuing to ease.
Thank you for that. Coming up next, Alex Randall with his news and comments when we come back.
You're watching News 2. This is Alex Randall with news and comment. Great news, this year's hurricane season is coming, and we have an El Nino. El Nino means the little boy. It's a set of conditions in the Pacific Ocean that tends to warm that ocean, which creates jet streams that shear the tops off of hurricanes in the South Atlantic. When there's an El Nino, we tend to have fewer hurricanes. Now, there's about an 80% chance that El Nino will continue through the spring and about a 60% chance it'll last through summer. That's the good news. The bad news? Forecasters are calling for 10 named storms, 6 of them hurricanes, 3 will become major hurricanes. Of course, even with a below average season and an El Nino, all it takes is one hurricane coming here to make a mess. So as always, be vigilant, be prepared, and pay attention to the news as we get closer to storm season. Now here's a bright spot in storm preparation. On St. John, there's a nonprofit called Love City Strong. They distributed 28,000 bottles of water on St. John this last week. They said the water came into their possession, and rather than waste it, they distributed it so that everybody has water in anticipation of this year's storm season. Maybe we'll get no storm, but we should all be prepared. Myra Keating Smith Health Center on St. John got ransacked by the storms. Now the new modular hospital units are finally open. The facility's open for medical emergencies and urgent care. Pretty much what St. John had before the storms, but it's a kind of scaled down operation. The original Myra Keating Smith facility was 28,000 square feet. The new modules are only 3,000 square feet. Quick math, that comes out to a half a square foot per person on St. John. And for anything major, you're still taking the boat to St. Thomas Schneider Hospital. Gasoline price controls? This is amazing. Countries have price controls during wartime or right after hurricanes. But now our government is reinstating local gas price control. Wholesalers of gasoline and gas stations have to submit written requests to change their prices. Gotta tell the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs why their proposed increase is in line with their costs. And woe be unto anyone who raises the price without permission. The fine's $200 per day. That's not actually anything new. In fact, the government order to send written price changes has been in effect since the hurricanes. Government's not telling the gas vendors they can't change the price, just they have to give notice. The election is going on now. If you have an opinion about the structure of our legislature, now is your chance to change it. Vote. Now, on the street, most folks I talk to just don't get it. What is really different? Same 15 senators, 4 districts instead of 2, more senators elected at large? Folks on the street are asking, what is the point? It doesn't sound different enough to be worth going to the polls. And as you may expect, when the issue is not compelling, not many people have gone to vote. So far, fewer than 2,000 people have voted. The law says that half the registered voters have to vote for this to count, which means nearly 24,000 people have to show up on Saturday and vote, or the whole thing collapses. It would have been easier if this had been on the normal November ballot. It would have helped if the changes were really significant, but it's not, and it remains to be seen if we, as a community, really care about this proposal to change the legislature. If you care, vote. And if you don't care, it's probably smart to vote too. Finally, this. Have you been to the Bureau of Motor Vehicles lately? I tried to get my kid a driver's license. The kid turned 16. Every kid wants a driver's license. But going to the Motor Vehicles Bureau is crazy. Where do you start? There are a lot of windows that all say cashier, but you have to stand in line to find out that you're in the wrong line. The driver's licenses are not in the main building anymore. They're around the back in a trailer. So you go to the trailer and you tell them you want to get a license, and they send you back up front. You have to pay $4 to get the medical form. But then what? No one tells you what to do or what steps to take and in what order. You would think there would be a sign that says, if you want to get a driver's license, do these steps in this order. But there is no sign. There's no sign that tells you how to register your car. There's no sign to tell you how to renew your driver's license. No sign to tell you how to sell your car. In fact, there are no signs to tell you anything. And yet there's a law. There's a law that says that every government office must have a sign in the lobby that tells the public what steps to take in what order to get the services they offer. It's a law. How do I know? I know it's a law because I hit the same wall at a government office that issues business licenses a dozen years ago. No sign. No idea what steps to take. No idea what order to do them in. I said there ought to be a law. There ought to be a law that says that every government office has to have a sign to tell you how to get the services the office offers. There ought to be a law. I agitated with the senators. A law was written. It was approved, signed by the government, signed by the governor, and it is law. Title III, Chapter 5, Subsection 17B. But how many government offices don't have a sign that tells you what steps to take in what order to get the services they offer? There ought to be a law. There is a law. Thanks for watching. This is Alex Randall with News and Comment. Now back to April.
Thank you for that, Alex. Took your time today. And that's it for our show tonight. Remember, we're live on Facebook and YouTube on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m., as well as on Via Channel 4 and 504. Make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram, tag us on stories you want to see on the news, or send us a message on Messenger. You can also email us at newsdirector@tv2.vi. Thanks again for joining us on News 2. I'm April Knight. We'll see you next time.